So a contrarian view that I've got in the industry is that technology isn't going to take away our freedom to think. It makes us think more. So the use of AI will make us think more.
Welcome to Data and AI Mastery, the podcast where we bring you cutting-edge insights, practical advice, and inspiring stories from the leaders shaping the future of data and AI across the globe. I'm your host, Raoul-Gabriel Urma, founder of Cambridge Spark, the leader in transformational data and AI upskilling, career development, and progression. In each episode, I will be diving into real-world case studies of companies harnessing the power of AI to drive innovation, reduce costs, and create new business opportunities. So whether you're an aspiring data scientist, AI engineer, or seasoned executive, this show is designed to give you the tools and knowledge to stay ahead in a world where data is transforming every aspect of business. Stay ahead, stay inspired, stay masterful. Welcome to Data and AI Mastery. Hi Rox, great to see you. How are you today?
I'm really well, and are you well today?
Fantastic. I'm actually super excited for a conversation today. So you were Director of Digital Data Technology at Cabinet Office, CIO at Macmillan, and now an MD at Barclays. So I'm amazed. So what a wonderful background. So maybe to kick us off, I thought it'd be great to get your perspective on what drew you in the technology industry in the first place.
It's a really interesting question when people look at my background. They think like I've done a bit of flip-flopping, but to me, the user's been at the center of everything that I've done. And the user actually is more important to me than the technology. Technology I find really exciting. I love to solve wicked problems, and I can do that with talented teams on the ground and with execs and selling the future vision. I see this huge opportunity. But to me, getting into tech was about doing things better for the users that use it and for the impact that we're trying to have in society. So that was what motivated me. I do think there's lots. And when I back to privilege, I really recognise on the privilege wheel, I tick a lot of boxes, but I tick a lot of others where I'm not so privileged, for example. And I really recognise, but I recognise that it's very personal, and so there's always a personalized need that's always kept me alive. It's back to your point about what's got me into this and keeps me sustained is driving that towards there's never going to be a single solution for everyone, and to maximize the opportunity to make it better for everyone, and make it more equitable for everyone as well.
Wonderful. So if I take you to your current role, so you're the MD of Digital Colleague Experience, could you help the audience understand a bit what does it entail?
So it's a really exciting role where we are optimizing the colleague experience, clues in the title, and from a digital perspective, clear in the title. But it's absolutely not just about digital. It's the online and offline blend. What's really important is that a colleague anywhere in Barclays can interface with the different experiences that we want them to in the most joined up and simple manner. And that sounds simple at the face of it, but we're in 43 regions. We have very different ways of working. We have everything from branches in the UK. So my grandma, she passed very recently. She's called Betty. I always use her as a persona with everyone. Betty in a branch is time poor, is not sat glued to her phone, but is dealing with probably somebody who needs to be served, and Betty needs the information to serve that customer in the best way possible, and be curious and confident in the data that she's seeing and the systems and tools that she's learning from. Then all at the other end of the spectrum and everyone in between, we've got the investment bankers who have a very different day and way of working. It's the same sort of time poor, etc. But we need to serve all those colleagues, and as mentioned before, they're all serving our stakeholders, and they're all they're all adding to the bottom line. So my job and our job in the teams is to help optimize all those different user experiences with our peers across the bank, and make things better.
Wow. So that must be hugely challenging, especially as you've mentioned, because you've got so much diversity in colleagues, not only region geographically, but by departments, by business function, and I assume by awareness and fluency of utilizing technology. So that must be quite a difficult job at hand. So how do you think data and AI can support the colleague experience? And I guess, how do you define success? Because it sounds like part of the success is, you know, every employee ultimately is interacting with stakeholders, and we want to serve relationships to be successful. But is there anything you can measure before that outcome is actually evidenced?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's a bit of chicken and egg, and we've done a lot of benchmarking. So if anyone's got the answer, please do 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 reach out, because it's a really invisible line, intangible line between the colleague and the customer, but it's definitely there. Um, and so in terms of impact, of course, we can measure impact. In my old world, you'd be in, it's like trying to create tweets to things you can see. So in my old world, time and motion studies, I used to watch people, literally, but not quite, going around a supermarket. So, and you'll see this next time you go to the supermarket, if you haven't already, the, the colleagues who are solving your queries or putting stock out in the back room or getting stock for you. They're all moving around, and it takes minutes, hours, and replication across all different sites and stores that a branch will have. It'll be hundreds of thousands of wasted effort a year. You can do the same in a more intangible space, but absolutely you can make it tangible about processes that you do every day. And this is where design thinking and service design and using the data of what you're doing is really exciting. And it's helping people understand that, be it a supermarket or a coffee shop, and your flow in a coffee shop and seeing the pain points in the coffee shop, which is the typical service design, great example. You can bring to life anything in a new way and help people realize that we work in an even more systemized world now with all data and AI, the opportunities, but don't just rush into things. Because we can see the issues when you do, about, as everyone knows, the lack of transparency, the lack of ethical decision making. So for me, the opportunities from data and AI, it's like any industry. I work in the financial sector, which is heavily regulated, but so are other sectors from different perspectives. But where you can use data and the opportunities with data and AI is actually the same across anything to do with clearly forecasting and a content optimization. And then moving to the right hand side, when you've got the right ethical considerations, you can use it for more things, from a colleague perspective, because there's huge opportunities like farmer skills, and you want to use it for things people care about first, as opposed to things people think that. And there's been a lot of cases recently, hiring that can be really controversial. That wouldn't be my first use case, for example, for the use of, of AI over what I call active data, which is virtually a personal data. But I use it passive data through the yin yang to bring people on the journey. That's things that will not change, like policies. Let's use it for things and experiment in that space, and then let's use it for activity in the active space once we've got all the guardrails in place, with things that users want to know and what can benefit them, such as skills and finding new opportunities in different areas of the organization. So there's lots I could delve into, but lots yeah, we've been using in the old retail world 10 years ago, data for forecasting to get you your ice cream in Barcelona, where it's sunnier, and not so much in Yorkshire, where it was probably raining, because you know it. You can aggregate different data sources. In the same way, let's do it for more things that are safe for colleagues and bring people on journey. I love the old David Rock scarf model about the motivational factors that sustain people. I always look to that to go, what would I want if I was a user of this system, to know what's ethical, what's rich for me that I can get benefit from, and what I then trust and use more AI in the colleague systems that I get served in future.
Great, thank you. I love what you said about the distinction between active data and passive data, and if you're getting started, you're better off looking more the passive data side, put a safeguard in place, because it's kind of like safer before you open up the box of personal data, which comes with more risk if you do it wrong. So I think that's a nice kind of like perspective to think about it, which I guess I'd love to hear your guidance for, other organization out there. If there was one use case or one area that you're seeing today that adds a lot of value internally for colleagues, what would you say it's worth focusing on? Because we live in a world where it's all about generative AI now. There's a ton of Copilot type of tools. Is this an area to look into, or is there actually other use cases that you're excited about?
I don't want to be a bore and say that it is an exciting area, but it is an exciting area. To me, making things more efficient is really important. So we'll never get colleagues who want to care about doing more stuff unless they're freed up from doing the stuff that they're doing already. So it may be less exciting, but some of the process automation work is really exciting to get under skin of. Obviously, it makes a tangible benefit to the bottom line. And I think increasingly we're moving to a space where people's time isn't just being freed up to walk their dog more, but is being freed up if we can measure it by actually putting it back in the system. So the Copilot rollouts. I had one senior leader say to me exactly that dog example, which is the use of Copilot isn't helping me with my bottom line. It's helping people have more time to walk their dog at home and at home. And what we need to do is move the opportunity, because it was just doing basic admin tasks and freeing up some time for the user. We're now moving into a bit of an era where finally we're actually starting to think about how we can use it in a different way. To not only process automation, we've got lots of opportunities to use different tools that we can optimize processes, but Copilot for colleagues and making assistants smarter. But actually, what was more exciting for me is the user on this journey, using it less for make my minutes, or whatever else for Copilot, but actually thinking differently, thinking about the questions that they're going to ask the assistant and the agent as we go forward. We're just about to do a trial where we only need 2 people in a team to have a Copilot license, a team of 8, because what's more important to me and us is that people come together on the problem statement and think differently, and recognize that Copilot is actually only the tool to make that happen. Absolutely recognize the excitement around pressing the buttons and seeing it happen and measuring the impact. But what has changed in those users to help them be more curious and confident in thinking differently and evolving their thinking to address more and more problem statements. So yeah, assistance and process automation, I think, are on the cusp of even more.
I resonate with that a lot, because what I'm hearing from many organization is, you typically, everyone gets excited about the technology bandwagon, let's buy all those licenses, let's use the tools, kind of like see what happens. And so the immediate quick wins that you always see described is the meeting notes, the email summary, or kind of like, but that's just maybe freeing up 10 to 20% of the admin task. And then it raised the question of what else can we do? But to unlock that next step, I'm hearing you need to invest a lot in education, right? Like to help people think about what's possible, play around with tools. Maybe it's marketing to create the graphics, create the content, create the video. Maybe it's sales to like support research. Maybe it's HR actually to kind of like, look at the screening of multiple CVs, and, that kind of like maybe it leads us to the ethics question. But ultimately, I feel like the next phase is reimagine your job a little bit with those tools and help you be a bit more creative.
Definitely. And you mentioned invest more there. And something that I've really realized recently is, obviously we talk about upskilling, and I think there's some study out there that said that's excellent. A quoting from me: 92% of people plan to invest more in terms of AI, but only 1% of senior leaders actually do. And I
And
think
why is that
that's
the
really,
case, you think?
yeah. Well, I just don't know, because is it lip service, or do they assume it will just happen, or is there just so much to do? And I think obviously younger generations are definitely using it more, and I definitely think that we don't put the guardrails in place, people will using the wrong AI tools, and we want to be able to help them. So I think the ambition is recognized, it's the understanding of what's needed. And I think it's linked to we're moving so fast in this AI world. What actually is needed? There's some foundations needed. And then you mentioned ethics. I mean, I'm hot on that topic. But also it's knowing stuff. So do you know your data lineage? If you own something in an organization, do you understand yourself, the data lineage, end to end of where the data is flowing, what system is it in, what it's touching, and if it's on premise or cloud, and what models is it touching, and where is it going? So custom to generic LLMs. What's it going to mean? And we've seen all this, all the cyber attacks recently. Will it mean that everyone's going to lock down their systems and actually become less open source or less transparent? I think there's a lot of less tech, but more like what's the world coming to, but what's happening in your world if you own something. So some sort of data value, do you understand it? And where do you want to go with it? And do you understand the opportunity or risks? And the excitement to me is vast. But how does someone who owns that, who doesn't even know how to get into those conversations, even start? And that's where I think the investment, there's lots of investment to go into places. It's not really on Copilot upskilling, which, like something out the box, should just be as easy as something out the box. It's on all those other topics that I think are really exciting to get into.
That's fascinating. I resonate because it's easy to get excited about technology, AI, and let's invest, but it's a lot harder to deliver a change, a transformation, bring people along the journey, and think about, all the problems that may, happen along that journey, right? There's a ton of risks, like you mentioned, and if you get it wrong, it could be reputational damage for the organization. Ethics. So you mentioned you're really hot on the topic. So I'd love to hear from you. What are considerations that you think leaders should keep in mind when they apply AI internally?
So some of those topics I just mentioned, like knowing where your data is. So don't just sign anything off. Don't just sign off proof of concept because it's easy. So understanding what data is being used for, understanding how people are being told the story about their data, and being transparent on that. Some organizations do, and some countries do, use cases a lot better than others. So I'm half Kiwi Aussie, and when I sit in my old grandma's room and listen to the local news line at night, hearing from central New Zealand a story about a community using AI spoken by the person in the community, saying, I'm using AI with the support of to improve my health, etc., fills me with great joy, but also surprise, because we don't tell stories in, I say, the UK the same way. So AI is treated as something scary, which it is if you don't do it right. But it's a huge opportunity. We don't talk about the opportunities of AI. We don't talk about how it's improving. I mentioned societal impact. So knowing where we can treat disease better, or how it's actually at the forefront of diagnosing. Or in my very old world, UK Hydrographic Office, they were monitoring where sea kelp grew. So, for example, how to track the development of more biofuels. So telling stories about AI in more tangible, real ways for people brings it to life. And then when you get on the personal info sort of side of things, leaders not only should be telling more stories about the opportunities and less balanced with the risk, but also understanding for that user the personal impact of that data and jumping on it when it gets wrong. The comms, for example, from M&S was highlighted as a really good example from this. And I think that's another use case. So don't just sit on bad news, and openly learn lessons. I think is really important, but also understand how you're storing that data. Who's a data controller, who's a data processor, and if these terms are new, go and find out, because they're hugely exciting to know. When you do it right, you're improving the services to people. So for leaders, I'd say get involved, to experiment, and to understand some of the basic terminology that's out there, and go and find some great use cases to share with people.
Great. So It sounds like a key skill that you describe is the art of storytelling. So be able to describe the opportunities to bring people on a journey and, celebrate that success, but at the same time balance it out with a fairly good understanding of the risks involved with that technology. In particular, it sounds like you said data governance is an area that, especially in large organizations that are regulated, that's one you really need to be on top of.
Yeah, absolutely. All that.
Great. Well, so on the topic of skills, in today's world, again, fast moving, what's a skill or mindset you encourage every colleague, in any organization to develop?
Design's my answer, because design thinking will never go away and will always be needed. People think service design, for example, is a once and done. Actually, that's not service design. It's designing for the user will always continue. So being at the cusp of how to think in a more inclusive and ethical way is always going to be valuable. So that.
Fantastic. Design thinking, one skill to invest in. And and why is it so important? Is it because ultimately that's how you get closer to your user and customer, and you can really figure out the value to generate for them?
Yeah, I also went on a bit of an easy one there with regard to, I know it encompasses a few other things. It absolutely encompasses, as I mentioned before, like knowing what infrastructure it's touching, knowing the data governance around it, having data literate, being properly data literate and hungry. So where are people like looking at the qual and quant data, looking at where the data is not in a journey, and that I find that really exciting as well, and looking where you can aggregate those different data sources. And I always look at ONS as a great role model for this, because they aggregate different data sources and come up with outcomes that as a single user you would never see yourself. I love those stories where you can bring together for them, for example, geographic populations, and then understanding, say, this number of people have packed lunches and what that means and what you can do to change things, and then what's so what. So for me, design thinking isn't just about the design thinking; it's about how we're using our knowledge of data, what's in the system, to do better things. So yeah, lots of things that I put under the umbrella of design.
Well, let's move to a quick fire run questions. I've got a few questions maybe to ask you, and love to get kind of like maybe a short response to it. Are you up for it?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, cool.
So, what's a contrarian view you have in the industry?
You say short, and I'm going to think. So a contrarian view that I've got in the industry is that what I mentioned before, actually, that technology isn't going to take away our freedom to think. It makes us think more. So the use of AI will make us think more.
I love that. That's a very controversial one, actually, because you hear a lot of people saying, actually, with AI, a cognitive ability are declining because we're depending on the system to do all the thinking. But you're arguing that actually it gives us an opportunity to go deeper and think harder, perhaps. So how do you stay up to date as a leader in this environment? What's your ways to do it?
Staying curious, and also recognizing you can't know everything or do everything. Having a good network who you can lean on, because not only will they be able to pass the baton to them and make them shine, enable them to shine, because you don't need the expert. They can be the expert, but also they can be the energy ladder for you. So when things get hard, you can bounce ideas. So having the trusted networks.
Super. I've got a couple more personal questions now, and
Okay.
I have a feeling I might know the answer to the next question, but I'll see. What's your favorite programming language?
Favorite programming language.
That's what I was about to say.
You know what? It's a really funny one. I remember the first lesson I was in back to uni, where I learned how to code Hello World, and that first moment that you press that button and something happens, you'll never forget. And I think so. And knowing then how to make it better. I know that was only 2 words, but yeah, and I also know where I was not very good going around and asking people for favors around the university hall.
Cool. My next question is, what was your favorite subject at school?
So I was thrown out of art because I wasn't very good at it.
Okay.
So that's probably but I actually quite enjoy like trying to get on the skin of why I was not so good at it. Probably something like maths. Again, I like to solve things. Again, I wasn't very good at it, but I don't think you need to be good at something to actually enjoy it. So
And my last question, you see, I'm building this kind of like data set of favorite music genre from
Great.
senior technology leaders. So what is your favorite music genre, Rox?
My favorite music genre. Oh goodness. Well, I did see Kylie recently. Big fan of Kylie. So uh, anything that's got a good beat. I have to go not genre, but anything that's got a good beat and a good moral in the story. I think that's also important.
Fantastic. Thank you, Rox. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast today.
Thank you very much. It's been delightful, and see you soon.
I really enjoyed our conversation with Rox today. What a charismatic person. Such a rich conversation, and a couple of things stood out. One, when I asked her, what's a fundamental skill that is needed in this world of AI? And she said design thinking. Design thinking is very much a human-centered approach to problem solving when you keep users really at the core of what it is that you're looking to develop innovative solutions for. And if we take this perspective of caring about your user, in large organizations that are multinational, it's extremely difficult because you've got different geographies, different culture. So users, they sit in different countries, but also you may have users that sit across multiple business function. Somebody in the marketing team or somebody in HR or somebody that sits in a local branch will all have different needs and might think about AI in different ways. So it makes it hugely challenging to get the most value of AI. It's not as simple as, AI can really empower your workforce. You actually have to go many levels deep in order to generate the best value for your users. In this case, in our conversation, colleagues in the organization. Thank you, everybody, and I look forward to see you on the next episode. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Data and AI Mastery. If you found value in today's discussion, make sure to subscribe so you never miss an insight from the leaders driving the future of data and AI. And if you're a data and AI leader looking to upskill your workforce with the fundamental data and AI skills to transform your business, Cambridge Spark is here to guide you every step of the way. Be sure to reach out to us on LinkedIn or on our website, cambridgespark.com. Until then, be sure to keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible with data, and remember, mastery comes with continued learning and action. Until next time, stay ahead, stay inspired, and stay masterful.